Hello, everybody, and welcome to Commodity Culture, where our goal is to make you a better investor in the commodity space. My name is jessebday. Before we dive in, as always, standard disclaimer, nothing here is investment advice. Do your own due diligence, and I'm very excited about the episode we're bringing you today. We're going to be talking all about Osmium. We've gotten a lot of questions since the Osmium documentary debuted on the channel a few weeks ago. And so we want to answer some of those questions and also expand on the information presented there to bring you up to speed on this very unique commodity. And to do that, we have Ingo Wolf, the scientific director, and Scarlett Klaus, the vice director at the Osmium Institute, Germany, to answer your questions and mine as well. It's great to have you both on the show.
Thank you for having us. That's wonderful.
Thanks, Jesse. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you both here. I'm going to start off by hitting Ingo with some questions, and I'm going to move on to Scarlett. We're going to cover different aspects of osmium as a commodity, as well as the very unique market, both jewelry and tangible assets. So I'm going to start with you, Ingo, and with the most basic of questions. For those out there who have never heard of osmium, how would you describe osmium? What is osmium?
Well, there is 8 noble metals on the planet, and this is the last one that is brought to the market. So you all know silver, gold, palladium, platinum, rhodium, ruthenium, and osmium is the last one of them. And there is just a couple of kilograms left that is on our planet, and it is extremely noble. So it doesn't react with other metals, with other chemical substances. And let's say it's more pretty than the others because the way it is sold is in a crystalline form. And osmium has a couple of physical properties that people really like. So it has the highest density of all the metals. It is not possible to counterfeit osmium. So that is everything in a nutshell. But of course, I can talk hours and hours because that is my job. What you see here is our institute in Murnau. And we'll have groups of tourists here, and then we're telling all of these things.
Well, it is a platinum group metal, and I would like to get some idea on the supply of osmium. Is it mined alongside platinum generally? Which parts of the world does it come from? And what is the current situation when it comes to osmium supply? You mentioned there's not much left.
Right. So mining has been done generally in South Africa. There is other spots on the planet too, which are with a minor interest, like, for example, Montana or the Ural. But we're at the very end of this line of mining because there is a couple of reasons why osmium isn't taken out of the ground anymore. And one is the supplies of platinum going backwards because of electric car industry. And the other is that osmium is not taken out of the platinum anymore because there is just a lot of effort to do so. And so the resources are going back to zero. And to be honest, there is close by to no source anymore where you can buy ethically mined osmium. And this means there is a couple of kilograms in Russia, and we will not buy those kilograms. And the rest is in our store already.
Yeah. So you talked about the crystallization process as well. This is actually a fairly new development, having been discovered in 2013 after 4 decades of research. Talk to us about that process and how it changed the game for osmium.
If you just have a platinum group metal, you cannot decide which is which one, right? You need to have a chemical procedure to figure that out. With osmium, it is really easy because you just have a crystallized surface, a little like a sugar cube, where no sugar cube looks like another sugar cube. So if you go down into the surface and dive right into the crystals, then you always have a fingerprint, which is even on a square millimeter more than 10,000 times more accurate than a fingerprint. So that helps. And it is the major difference. Because if you have a look on osmium in the sunlight, it doesn't just reflect, it sparkles. And this means that the natural grown surfaces on these little crystals are so flat that they reflect sunlight just really parallel. So on a distance of 30 or 40 meters, you can see osmium with your naked eye sparkle. That's the main difference.
And I've had this question come up a few times now in terms of industrial use. Is there any industrial use for osmium at present, or is it strictly in the jewelry and tangible asset side of things?
As long as you call the jewelry industry an industry, then this is the industrial use. To give you an answer on the other question, there's just none. Because sometimes people come in and say, well, it is used for pen tips or it's used for needles on a turntable, etc. That is past. It is decades ago that people did something like this. And there would be a lot of things that you could do with osmium. But on the other hand, there is just such less osmium left. You cannot build a high rise and use the compression modulus osmium to build it very, very high. There is just not enough for industrial use.
Right. And you talked about how osmium cannot be counterfeited. I'd like you to dive deeper into that because I want to talk about the osmium identification codes associated with each piece. I think we can use a comment that was left on the Osmium documentary to dive into that. Somebody said, so what happens when people start making knockoffs, real barcodes, fake osmium, and packaging? How do we, the public, test for real osmium? How would you answer that?
Well, very easy because there is two sides. One is the piece of the osmium that includes the fingerprint. And on the other hand, the code is not a code as a certificate belonging to this particular piece. It is more the way how to get to the scan, the surface scan of osmium, where you see the original surface. So there is a trusted source, that is the Osmium Institutes around the planet. We are running the database where every piece of osmium is scanned down to a nanometer. And if you have an osmium piece in your hand, no matter whether this osmium identification code is a fake or not, if you type it in, you come to the original picture. If you now compare this with the piece that you hold in your hand, you have definite clarity about whether this piece is the one that is offered or not. So 100%.
So 100% accuracy, you can ensure that this is authentic osmium.
Even
That's
more,
very fascinating.
Even more.
Yeah.
Nothing happened up to this moment now. Nobody was able to counterfeit osmium. There is not a single case over 12 years.
So when it comes to buying and selling osmium, this identification code, obviously it plays a key role in that both when you're purchasing osmium, you can be ensured that it's authentic through that network, the osmium identification codes. And then when you're selling it, once again, it kind of proves ownership in a way as well. Is that correct?
Well, first of all, the one who is the buyer can be sure that the osmium is true. That is the first thing. Second is that the database follows the owners. So in the moment you give your piece of osmium to somebody else, and maybe you sell it to the black market, or somebody steals it and gives it to the black market, and then somebody buys it on a market wherever, right? On a train station in Russia. And on the very next day, you try to sell it again. Then you'll have to have what we call the owner change code. This is a code that just the owner of the osmium has to transcribe the osmium to the new owner. And that is the major thing behind. And all of this is related to osmium identification code, which gives you the clarity that this is this particular piece of osmium. So everybody can be sure, the seller and the buyer.
Well, talk to us about the Osmium Institute, along with the Osmium Council. What roles do both organizations play in the production and certification of crystallized osmium?
Well, let me dive a bit into the past for 20 seconds, because when we started with everything, this was just one thing. People thought that osmium market is just Ingo Wolf, right? Then that is wrong. My mother called me Mr. Osmium one day. So something was on the way to go wrong, right? So I decided to step back from this thing. This is what it was necessary in the beginning. And then the Osmium institutes have been the source for the Osmium database. It is the company where the Osmium has been scanned all of those times. And we're doing this now too. There is just one institute doing this, and this is the Mona Institute here in Munich. And on the other hand, it was necessary to have something like a loudspeaker to industry, somebody to interact with if you are an association. And therefore, we founded the Osmium World Council. So I was general manager of the Osmium Institute, and I was president of Osmium World Council, and this has to change. So now we did the 6th of the Osmium symposiums, and this year it was the way that I went step back from being general manager of the Institute. This went over to Florian Haune now. And second is I went back a step back from being president of the Osmium World Council. You cannot have control in one hand. And now this is Marcos Saito from Sao Paulo, Brazil, because the Osmium Institutes are spread all over the world. And Marcos now is the new elected president, because the first one hasn't been elected, because this was just me as the founder, right? And now I gave this in public hand because that is necessary. People do not trust in something that is controlled by one person. I don't want to be some kind of a dictator. I was just the initiator. And after this now, market is running free.
And talk to us about the expansion of Osmium Institutes globally. You mentioned Brazil. What other companies now have Osmium Institutes in them? What are their roles in kind of, are they a vehicle for marketing Osmium around the world? What other roles do they play?
Well, every Osmium Institute on the planet is dedicated to one role, and this is giving information to somebody who asks for this information. So if you are in Spain, if you are in wherever on the planet there is an Osmium Institute, let's say it's 40 countries now, and it's expanding, so there is a little work to do, but gold has 6,000 years, we had 12 years, and you go to an Osmium Institute and get the major information right out of one hand, in your country, in your language. And that is the reason why there has to be an institute in every country. Short way, language.
Fantastic. Well, Scarlett, I want to turn to you now. And the first thing I want to address is a comment I've heard a lot regarding Osmium since we released the documentary. And that is, it doesn't appear to operate in a free market like many other commodities. Can you talk about how the osmium market works and how it differs from other precious metals such as gold and silver?
Yes, of course. So the first thing we have to clarify, although I think it's already kind of clear, but we always talk about the crystalline version of osmium here. So raw osmium is something else. There isn't a market evolving around that at all, but still we're only talking about the crystalline version. And the main difference to, say, gold or silver is that it is a market where there is absolutely no fraud happening and possible. And the reason for that is that all the crystalline osmium is introduced to the market through the Osmium Institute Germany and the Osmium Institutes that are working together with us. And all the crystallization is happening in Switzerland in one place. And then every single piece, even the smallest pieces, are going to the German Osmium Institute, where they are being registered, scanned, weighed, and all of this information is entered into the database. So the main difference is that other than gold or silver, which are pretty uncontrolled market and open for a lot of fraud due to many reasons, here every piece is traceable and you can be 100% sure where it came from. So from the mine basically to the finger, like these pieces here, you can trace them and you know that your piece is true. And I think that is the main difference behind it.
So walk us through the three phases of the osmium market and how they affect prices, and maybe any insight you could give us into how the osmium, crystalline osmium, is priced.
Yes, so there are three market phases in general when you're looking at the market of crystalline osmium. And the first, and these three market phases are separated through two major events. And the first phase is basically the phase where the raw osmium is coming into crystallization and is being crystallized. And at some point, the raw osmium, there won't be any more because we're already talking about such a rare material in general. And actually, we already know that this is happening now because on the last Osmium Symposium, the annual one, which was held in Germany for the first time, we officially announced what we have seen coming for a couple of years now, actually, that the amounts of osmium that you can get ethically are even smaller than we thought. So we're talking about a market of around 300 kilograms here, and those are already purchased by the Osmium Institutes. And then no new osmium will be introduced anymore, and all of these 300 kilograms will be crystallized by the end of 2026. So this is when no new osmium will enter, or crystalline osmium will enter that market anymore. And this is the so-called Osmium Big Bang. That was actually a nickname given by the Americans, and it sort of indicates the moment no new material is coming anymore. And this might obviously be an interesting factor that is correlating or having an actual effect on the price of osmium. And when all of this osmium is crystallized, then it is slowly being sold to the tangible asset investment market. and which is already happening right now, obviously. But at some point, all of the osmium will be in the hands of tangible asset investors, and then it goes into the third phase, and in the third phase, it is merging slowly into the jewelry and luxury market. Those two phases are somewhat happening simultaneously because we have more and more brands now, more and more people from international countries working with jewelry, working with luxury. But the interesting thing is that once it arrives in the luxury and jewelry market, it never returns to the tangible asset investment market. And this is the second event that I talked of, and it's called the osmium thin out, because the amount of osmium that is available in tangible asset investment market is constantly being thinned out into the last market phase, the jewelry and luxury market, from where it doesn't return. So we have growing demand on one side and increased source on the decreased source on the other side. So this obviously could be a very interesting factor regarding the price development too. And the reason for osmium, why it's not coming back to the tangible asset investment market, is that you are not just melting it down like gold and silver. If you inherit the gold ring of your grandmother, or your gold teeth, whatever, you can bring them to someone who purchases gold, they'll melt it down and they'll pour it into a new bar, which, by the way, again, makes ethical tracking absolutely impossible. But with osmium, once it's crystallized, the crystalline surface is its fingerprint, and this is where the main value is coming from. So you will never actually bring that back and try melting it into new bars. It's never going to happen. So this means once it's coming to the jewelry and luxury side, it stays there. And this is the thin out and basically the last market phase of the crystalline osmium market. And obviously the ones where the prices are most likely going to increase, and the most interesting one that most tangible asset investors are actually looking for. So we're talking a long-term tangible asset investment here and not a short-term one.
Okay, I've got a hypothetical question here. This is not a question I've prepared originally, but it came to mind, and I know people are going to ask about it. Let's make a scenario where Russia decides, hey, this osmium thing seems great. There's this Osmium Institute, but we don't want to work with them. We want to start our own osmium company now. So we're going to mine osmium and we're going to crystallize it and we're going to release it into market as kind of a competing version, if you will, to the osmium being released and certified by the Osmium Institute. What are the barriers in place that potentially prevent that? And Ingo, you can chime in here as well. Scarlett, I'll ask you first. Because I know this question is going to come up, because you're saying the osmium supply will run out, but what if some kind of competitor decides they want to start mining and crystallizing osmium?
Two answers. The first one is, if this will happen, I do not think that the quality of crystallization will reach what we do during the first 10, 20, 30 years. So this will not happen tomorrow, first of all. Second, there is still the database. So we are not just looking for having the osmium just on the market. It is just about tracing the osmium, yeah? And I think I can hand over to Scarlett to give you the answer on this tracing part, because that is really interesting too, and that is her favorite subject.
Yeah, sure. So as I said, every single piece is absolutely unique and has an OIC, which is within the database. So even so for the first reason is raw osmium, the sources are already basically depleted, especially the ones where you want to mine ethically. So it would be hard to get your hands on that. Second, what Ingo said, it's basically impossible or would take a very long time to bring the crystallization process to the actual way how we are doing it or how it's being done in Switzerland. And the third thing, and then is, as every single piece is traceable within this database, it would still need to be certified within this database, because this is the actual only way how international customs are also accepting private individuals to bring osmium across borders. It's within the customs regulations. So there's a lot of borders and hurdles someone would have to cross to get to a point where it would be interesting. And then keep in mind, we're not talking about a huge market in quantity. Yes, obviously the prices, because it's such a rare commodity and it's very sought after, and it's more and more getting more and more popular, prices could skyrocket, definitely, but we're still talking about a pretty small market compared to gold or silver. So putting that much effort into it is very unlikely. And what Ingo said, this traceability now the Osmium identification code, is becoming super important and probably the most important part in the jewelry industry. Because once, as every single piece of osmium is traceable, once you place it into a piece of jewelry, this jewelry piece can't be counterfeited anymore. You can't forge it anymore. So for luxury brands, it's becoming more and more important also that it's pretty and that it sparkles, yes, and that it's rare. But the main reason is actually, hey, as soon as I implement this, no one can copy my piece. And this goes with the Osmium database, which is the one that has been run by the Osmium Institutes. So there wouldn't really be a reason or a request or a need for other crystallized osmium coming from somewhere else. Again, if that even were to happen, which I highly doubt.
Very thorough answer. I want to try to understand both the jewelry and the tangible asset aspect of the osmium markets. Could you walk us through the level of demand you're seeing on both sides and just any insights you could provide into the jewelry side and the tangible asset side would be very helpful.
Sure. So there are these two markets, as you put it, right? And the first, I want to say 5 to 7 years, it was basically only tangible asset investment. So the I want to say early bird phase, people who said, okay, I see the potential behind this as a jewelry and luxury material, even though no pieces have been created yet. And the reason for that was that it is rare, obviously, that it is unforgeable and every piece is traceable, but also the value density of it, because you can hold $1 million in the palm of your hand, just having 7 of the large investment discs, they're about this size, then you have $1 million in your hand. So it's very easy to store, also because it doesn't tarnish or anything. So that was the tangible asset investment side of things. And then about, I want to say 2020, the first jewelry pieces came up. The whole market around the jewelry definitely was delayed a little bit due to COVID. But still, the moment the first jewelry pieces appeared, people were like, oh, this is amazing, especially because right now the diamond market is kind of unstable due to the man-made lab-grown diamonds, and people were looking for alternatives. So this was slowly starting then. And I want to say, if you had asked me this question about a year ago, I would have said 90% or even 95% tangible asset investment, 5% jewelry. And over the last couple of months, which is what intrigues me the most about it, because I mean, I'm a girl, I love sparkly things, and I kind of was one of the first people who initiated osmium jewelry. It's become more and more popular. So we actually have had months in the last half year where 30% of the sold osmium went into jewelry and luxury already, which is obviously amazing. So I think the tangible asset investment market will probably for a while be the stronger market, especially the more people hear about it, looking where we're headed with the Osmium Big Bang and everything. But the luxury industry is more and more picking up on it. And I think that as much as I say, hey, it's beautiful, it sparkles, it's rare, the real value here is the traceability of every single jewelry piece. And obviously, it's very highly supported by people, or a lot of people, not trusting the diamond as much as they used to. And now they're looking for a sparkly alternative.
Yeah, very interesting. If we look out over the course of 5 to 10 years, obviously, as you mentioned, crystalline osmium is going to become more and more scarce. How do you see the osmium market evolving over the around 5-year to 1 decade timeframe?
So I definitely see it growing. The main reason for that is that I lead the international department in our company, and just to see that now new markets are picking up on it, which are nothing size-wise compared to the markets we have been so far. So right now, this has been heavily Europe-based, and we've had the first expansion and the first sales and the first partners in the United States, in South America, but now markets like Korea and China are entering the game. And I think that here we just talk about completely different numbers, So I think it's definitely going to be growing, and it's going to grow exponentially and not linear. So I think we're in for quite the show over the next couple of years. And as much as or in the end, everything will end up in the jewelry and luxury market. We can't say when, but that's how the market will evolve. But I think that most people who go into tangible asset investment strategy with Osmium, they're ones who really have those long-term goals. It's called it got a nickname which is called the next generation metal. So I actually think that a lot of people will just sit on it and hold it for the longest time possible, probably inherit it off to their children, and then only sell it into the luxury and jewelry industry when the demand there is growing larger and larger, because you cannot produce new osmium. Like with diamonds, I once calculated it just for fun together with Ingo. We breathe out, a normal adult breathes out 1,400 carat a day, like out of your breath. You would need the machinery to transform it into diamond, but still. So carbon itself is not a rare commodity, but we're talking about the rarest stable element on Earth, so the rarest non-radioactive element on Earth. And considering how humans love sparkly, rare things, which then, in addition to that, certify jewelry piece and make it unforgeable and traceable, I think we're looking at a pretty cool market here that's going to develop even further.
Absolutely. I want to end this conversation by opening the floor to both of you to discuss anything else you think it's important to know about osmium that we either haven't yet touched on, or something you want to reinforce. Ingo, I'll start with you on this one.
Well, there is one question that is usually asked first, and that is how to do resale with osmium. So I bought osmium, maybe I'll give it to my children, and someday they're going to sell that osmium to the market again. Where is the market? What is the market? Who is doing pricing, etc.? And that is necessary to know, because it correlates with the question, hey, Ingo, what are you doing in 10 years? And hey, Scarlett, what are you doing in 50 years? And this is very easy, because even if the osmium is sold out to the tangible asset market, from there, it has to go to jewelry industry. This means every piece of osmium has to go back to an institute, and has to be cut into pieces for inlays, has to be certified again as an inlay then, and has to be given to the industry for production of jewelry. And this is the most important part where we're going to work in future. And we're going to have a look on osmium pricing too, because osmium pricing is done by the president of the Osmium World Council. This market is not big enough, as Scarlett mentioned, to do a bourse of, as the French guys say, a stock exchange for osmium. That is just not possible. So pricing is done on the facts that we have on the market by the president of the Osmium Institute. And one day in future, when we are going to very, very low sums of osmium that are in the tangible asset market, and we're going close to zero, then those prices will, as we think, go very high. And you might imagine that this is interesting if we're really running out of a product, as we call osmium, as a semi-manufactured product that goes to jewelry industry. So that is the part where people then needs to do a resale, and in the moment they found a customer, they need an Osmium Institute to be helped by this process.
That was great to shed light on that process. And yes, a very poignant question. Scarlett, anything that you'd like to cover when it comes to osmium? Final words.
Yeah, so just one more thing probably. One of the main reasons why the Osmium institutes with our partners were founded was to educate about it. And now we're also offering obviously like free training, free information about it. So especially, I know this is a commodity-based channel, but especially when it comes to working with it as a luxury and jewelry material, we're not talking about something that people have to do a whole new training and whole new certification about. It's quite easy. If you know how to set zones, you can also set osmium, but we're obviously supporting anyone who wants to be part of this market in any regard. So we offer those free trainings and all of these things. So if there's ever interest, then people are very welcome to approach us regarding that. That's one thing. And one other thing, because we didn't touch base on that and it just jumped to mind. So Ingo mentioned the Osmium identification code, which is a customs designation, then followed like by an 8-digit alphanumerical code, which identifies the piece. And there's, in addition to that, a so-called OCC, which is an owner change code. And this basically proves the ownership of the piece. So you have the identification code and you have the ownership code. And with these two codes, you can easily transfer the ownership of the osmium piece itself to another individual if you want to, if you want to give it to your children, if you gift it to someone, if you resell it. So the trade between private individuals is made super safe because you can always check the authenticity, and you don't have to involve Osmium institutes or partners if you don't want to. But if you do, obviously, we're also here happy to help whenever questions are arising.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to put links in the description below to further information about Osmium for people who want to check that out. Scarlett, Ingo, this has been a fantastic conversation and greatly enjoyed it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Wonderful.
Commodity Culture is a series on commodities and natural resources. If you would like to see more, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're always up to date with the latest episodes.